We'll move on to public participation, and we come to the public forum first, and I have the pleasure of inviting St John's Christchurch to come to the table. Alice Earnshaw Morris, I believe, is representing St John today. Thank you so much for coming here today and making the presentation. Thank you for all you do in the community. So I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
You'll need to turn your microphone on. And you can sit down if you wish.
I tend to bounce around a little bit.
That's fine. Bounce around.
So apologies. So I am Alice. I am the Area Executive Manager for St John Christchurch. I also, as you can tell from the green uniform, someone who turns up on the ambulances from time to time. So today I'm going to talk to you about what we do in the community and what I would like from you as councillors. So the reason I'm here today is because we are the provider of one of 3 primary emergency services in Christchurch, but we are also the provider of a huge number of community health initiatives and services that tend to fly under the radar. So what I'm actually here to do today is to ask each and every one of you, from your mayor right down, I want to build relationships with you. I want to find out what is missing in your communities, what we could be doing better in your communities. Each of your pieces of Christchurch has really different needs and requirements. I will add a small caveat here. I'm used to giving this presentation over about an hour. So I'm about to power talk at you. So apologies. Look, internationally, we're a huge organisation. We're approaching our 1,000th birthday. We have a medieval history that quite literally includes the Knights Hospitallers, and right the way through to the fact that we used to have an island of Malta. You may have heard of it in the middle of the Mediterranean. That's why we actually have the Maltese cross. We lost that in a siege with our favourite French villain, Napoleon. And then, way back. Look, we fell into abeyance for a little bit there. We came back again under Queen Victoria, which is why we actually now have the regnal animals on our insignia as well. This is the only organisation I have ever worked for that has 2 lions and 2 unicorns on its logo. Look, the Order of New Zealand actually started here in Christchurch, so we are incredibly proud of our roots here in Christchurch. We started down at a hall off the side of St Mary's Church in Merivale. Now that's now known as All Souls. It's still there, we're still connected to it. We still have very strong ties into that community. But we started off teaching first aid training. We had nothing to do with ambulances at all. Christchurch back in 1885 had a paucity of medical practitioners, so we were teaching people how to look after themselves. We are an NGO, which is sort of an odd historical discrepancy, I guess, when it comes to providing one of your 3 major emergency services. But look, it is what it is, and as I talk through, you'll understand why that sometimes works in our favour. I'll also point out we're a rather passionate bunch. 40% of our paid staff across the country also hold at least 1 volunteer role. I myself hold 2 volunteer roles within the organisation, which means essentially I have no life anymore, because I'm either on the ambulances, at events, or in my day job. Right, so I'll start with what you do know about us. This is the emergency ambulance service. We actually have 3 ambulance services in Christchurch. People are only aware of the one and think it's all one. So in Christchurch, I've got 3 stations, the hub and 9 spokes. The spokes look like houses. They are signposted, but they're very hard to find. The reason for that is they are not manned stations. This is not somewhere you can go and find help, but they are scattered across the city. The important piece for this conversation here, though, is the fact that I only have 15 vehicles across the city for emergency ambulance services. I run 11 of them in the day, 6 at night. These vehicles get run really hard. We're almost running them 24/7, which means I have a small allowance in there for taking them off the road for servicing, maintenance, crashes, you name it. When you're putting that number of vehicles out on the road constantly, things do happen, but we also run them incredibly hard. You'll note there that I have 140 volunteers who are on the ambulances in Christchurch. It's 140 people in your community who volunteer their time and energy to go and help people. They have the same qualifications, the same ATPs, if you know what authority to practice is with nursing staff, for example, they do the same. Our volunteers have the same qualifications, the same experiences, they just do it for free. And they're key to what we do. Look, our event ambulances is another team that we have. These guys are static. They're the ones who turn up to rugby games, to cricket games, to music concerts, to wine and food. Wrong city there for a second. These guys are static. If something goes wrong at that event, they can't up and leave and take someone to hospital. They will provide first level care and they will call the emergency ambulance guys to come in and pick them up and take them. So every time we run an event, for example, Electric Avenue a few weeks back, if something goes horribly wrong at that event, someone gets very sick, we need to take them to hospital, we are pulling emergency ambulances, one of those 15 vehicles, off the road to come and pick that up and take them. The third ambulance crew that we have in Christchurch is a weird one. Look, it's a team of specialist staff who deal with transferring patients between facilities. So this is people who have had post-surgery, who are going from Christchurch Hospital to Burwood for rehabilitation, or the other way around if surgery at Burwood did not go according to plan, we need them back into Christchurch Hospital, or coming from one of our private facilities into Christchurch Hospital as well. Just so you know that that exists. They do look quite different. Look, in terms of our funding, we are currently 78% funded by central government. That's through contracts with Ministry of Health and ACC. I am going to be incredibly clear with you, that 78% is only for the emergency ambulance service. Not the other two. Anything else that I talk about after this point is not covered by that funding. So we are less than 80% funded to provide our ambulance service. The bulk of the shortfall comes through donations from the community. We're running annual appeal this week. We will be shaking buckets to buy ambulances and pay for staff tomorrow and Saturday. So please give to us. We really need it. Right, things you don't know about us. We run youth divisions in Christchurch. We have 500 cadets. These are kids from 6 years of age through to 18. I run 11 groups in Christchurch to do this. This is essentially a youth program, the cheapest one you'll find in the country. But this is essentially life skills, leadership skills, and a very generous helping of health. A lot of our kids move into medical professions of some sort, whether it's allied health, paramedicine, or going to be doctors and surgeons. This is a great starting point for them. We're also cradle to grave. We don't actually get rid of our staff once they leave. We have a social and service group for retired staff. My eldest member is 92 in Christchurch. George has given 79 years of service to the organisation and to your communities, and he is still active. It's really impressive. But we don't drop them. We keep this as part of a prevention of social isolation. These people stay with us and continue to provide service to the community. Moving on, community care, things that you may have seen us do. We have volunteers in the emergency department at Christchurch Hospital. These guys provide the caring support that the ED staff cannot. So ED are busy there trying to stop you vomiting, patch up the bleeding, all the rest of it. Our volunteers in there actually say, "Are you all right? You've been here for 4 hours now with your mum. Do you need a cup of tea? Is your mum cold? Does she need a blanket?" They can do the personal caring that the ED staff simply don't have time for, and we don't expect them to have time for that. I've also got them in the paediatrics. I'm about to start in the next couple of months a New Zealand first of having these volunteers in our intensive care unit as well, at the request of the Canterbury District Health Board. So we'll be moving through for that. We also run Caring Caller. This picked up dramatically over COVID, obviously. This is a social isolation phone-based service where we match people up and provide friendship. Therapy pets, this is starting, that's Moose. Moose no longer works for us, but he's a very cool dog. This is a growing service. We're currently in 5 aged care facilities in Christchurch. Our wait list for this is bigger than we can match at the moment. But this is essentially just another recruitment drive for volunteers and their dogs. This goes through an amazing process to sort out the wheat from the chaff before we let them go anywhere. But this is essentially friendship pets. We'll be moving into primary schools to help with reading programs as well for children. Right, thinking of schools, ASB in schools, we teach children to save lives from when they are early childhood education through to CPR in high schools. These programs started as a pilot program and an initiative here in Christchurch and is now rolled out nationwide. And we've had a lot of lives saved by our kids. We're just extending this at the moment. We started off focusing purely on CPR processes. We're now teaching them how to recognise strokes and react to that as well through the FAST acronym. Thinking of kids in schools, we are also starting to work on mental health and mental wellbeing. This is a particular program that we are aiming at our intermediate age children. Both these programs, are free to schools. This is part of what we do as our charity. All these things are what we do as our charity work. But this is about the fact that intermediate age children have some real issues around building resilience, strong relationships, and a strong sense of self-identity. You've all seen the mental health stats that keep flying around. This is some of the work that we're doing to try and head that off at the pass. We are looking for a partner. This has been run as a pilot and getting very good reception around the country, but we're looking for a partner organisation to help fund it so that we can roll it out and have it be free to schools. It's all right.
I don't mean to interrupt, but power
talk. Look, shops. These are starting to turn up. This is how we do some of our funding. Medical alarms, you've seen the ads for these. This is what keeps people in their own homes. About a third of these calls that come through to us are accidental activations. However, we can actually turn up and check on people and make sure they're fine. First aid training, this is where we started, and this is what we still offer. We teach everything from babysitting courses through to advanced resuscitation skills for health practitioners. We cover the works. And we have a mental health first aid course as well. Everything else that we do, look, we're running a whole lot of pilot programs. We have, because of the fact that we started in Christchurch, we've got the only fleet of vintage ambulances, for example, in the country, but we're also doing work around getting AEDs into communities and teaching the communities CPR for free. So we're working quite closely with the Otatahi Community Housing Trust at the moment and getting places into them. I think that's me. Yeah, well done.
Well done, you. No, but thank you very much. And I think what you've demonstrated is that there is an incredible, breadth and depth to what you do. And I think it is a really helpful reminder, especially as you go into your campaign for your fundraiser this weekend, just to remind people how much you do, rely on the generosity of not only your own volunteers, but of others who will financially contribute.
And as I said when I started, ideally what we're looking to do is actually to reach out to each and every one of you and say, can we actually sit down and talk with you? Can we talk about what's happening in your communities? Can we talk about what is needed, what is missing, where should we be focusing next?
You couldn't have chosen a better meeting to make that point to, because you've got every chair of every community board sitting in behind. They're presenting their reports today, and I know that they are going to welcome St John's, directly relating to them at the community board level, and I know that they will all have issues that they will want to raise with you. And
we want to hear them, we want to know about it. We can't help if we don't know what's going on. And sometimes we get our heads a little bit stuck in the emergency ambulance service in terms of our immediate focus.
Well, I really appreciate you reaching out today, really appreciate your presentation, and I know that the community boards, and I'll just ask all councillors to join with me in thanking you in the way that I think is appropriate. And good luck for your fundraising this weekend.
Oh, that's annoying, but never mind.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, and the next one is Davina Penny, who's coming to talk about land use.
Thank you. The MPS regarding productive land is hugely relevant. Only 5% of the available land in this country is LUC 1 to 2 class soil, and only 14% of the land is LUC 1 to 3, with all three classes versatile with high potential for productivity. The land shown north of State Highway 1 is coded. The blue areas bordered in red are LUC 1 to 3 land, and the green boxed areas are those indicated in a 2014 report to Council regarding quarry rehabilitation. And the green boxed areas are sites identified by the industry as being potential sites, and the blue boxed area was consented in 2020. All sites are fully inclusive or significantly inclusive of LUC 1 to 3 land. Valuable soil is removed through quarrying. Rehabilitation in this region is not undertaken in a timely manner, and we also know it's likely to mostly be in the form of just 30 centimetres of soil which is grassed, very close to aquifers which may rise due to climate change issues. Pastoral use and grass growing is the only viable option. Food production on any commercial scale is not. Quarrying should not be consented as an activity on HPL. There are alternatives for these sites, and yes, they may be a few k's further away from the end use, but there are alternatives. There will be claims from the industry to justify the use. Expect claims of increased carbon footprint instead of the usual hand-wringing of increased transport costs. Well, the answer is this. They should lead the way in investing in and investigating alternative forms of transport, including the electrification of fleets in this fast-moving technological space, including on-site use. The Supreme Court has said outright avoidance is a response that is legitimately available under the RMA. Therefore, no consent should be considered on HPL, regardless of what mitigation or remediation is proposed by the industry. It's likely to be unproven and come with high risk. With 23 to 30 years of aggregate currently available in this region, the environment should be sustainably managed in advance of the NPS being gazetted. Provisions are already applicable in the RPS and have been for some time. My second request is for setbacks from quarrying activities to be applied that will offer protection to residents and communities. All councils have a responsibility under the Health Act to protect or improve health, and this starts with where activities are permitted, and the land use consent falls at the feet of CCC. And I will add today that ECAN have kicked that can well and truly into your backyard. I'm asking that 1 kilometre is considered for the following reasons. Mitigation measures used are poor. Water is the measure of choice, which is limited in effectiveness, but it's free to the operator. Technology is available used elsewhere that utilises water, but will include dust collection systems, covered operations, and out-of-hours ongoing mitigation. Currently non-existent, but wind does not abide by quarry operating times, and Easter Sunday was proof of this. With regular high winds in this region, PM10 and smaller can and does disperse high distances, and certainly beyond 500 metres. Claims of lower distances by applicants are not substantiated. Compliance monitoring, response and investigation is woeful and may indicate a breach of the Health Act. There is no deterrent for operators to ensure they do not impact on those in the vicinity. Quarries do not operate in isolation in this region. Clusters evolve comprising of several operators with cumulative effects which when combined are significant for those in the vicinity. The CARP indicated a cow barn would be 1 kilometre from a residential zone, a more significant setback than that for a quarry. And additionally, residential property owners must be given the same rights as those in residential zones. Being treated differently amounts to discrimination, which is not provided for in the Health Act. This council sets the ball rolling with where the quarry is sited, tipping that first domino. So please, can I ask that you do the right thing for your residents? Current setbacks have proved to be ineffective, particularly when super quarries involving several operators do become the norm. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your submissions covered the air quality issue, which I think you've submitted to ECAN on, is that right?
I have, but they did rightly point out the siting of the quarries is that first domino. It's where it's sited, which does have a big impact, and that falls in the council.
As you'll know, the district plan was completely rewritten by the independent hearings panel. It was part of a process that was a post-earthquake land use recovery plan process, and it was and this particular issue we are all very well aware of because the council as an organisation had to submit based on the level of expertise that they brought to the issue. The councillors didn't agree with that, and we looked for an expert who could provide independent expert advice to the independent hearings panel to increase the setback between quarries and residential. So we totally agree. The independent hearings panel didn't agree with our position, with our expert, and they accepted the other submissions that they had received, and so the setbacks are not they're not sufficient in our view, but we can't change our district plan to achieve any greater setbacks. We tried, and we were not successful in achieving that. So we really appreciate the issue, but the solution isn't here. But we do agree that ECAN's role in monitoring the conditions of the resource consent as applied to air quality are absolutely imperative to the operation of the system. And so we will ask our Chief Executive to raise this with ECAN to make sure that the monitoring processes are the best that they can be, because you're entitled to that. So that's where I have to leave things, because...
Can I just ask, would part or subsection E of section 23 of the Health Act be applicable, where you can impose bylaws to protect health?
It's not. It's not applicable. It's in relation to the relation to other health matters, but air quality sits with ECAN, not with the City Council. But I think you know that. I think the issue for us here, and we want to move this forward in a positive way, is to make sure that our council as an organisation is ensuring that that we present to ECAN, which is the monitoring organisation, to make sure that they are actually enforcing what are resource consent conditions. They're obliged to do that. So thank you very much for your presentation this morning. Thank you. I'm sorry we can't offer anything more than that.
Yeah, the residents are just going to be ending up taking legal actions and any recourse. I think that's all they've got, really.
True. Thank you. Right, and we've got the Ross. Is it? I'm not pronouncing your name. Is it
Ross Hulliston.
Hulliston. So is it spelled Houlis?
T-O-N, yep.
Yeah, so it was misspelt in front of me. That's why I was having difficulty with it. Sorry.
Right.
Thank you.
Now, I'm Research Submissions Officer for the Greater Hornby Residents Association, and we fully support the fact that the RMA is just a joke, an absolute standing joke in the way it is worded at the current time, and there is room for it to be improved and needs investigating. However, today I've got this here. All LUC 1 to 3 land in the Christchurch city boundary should be excluded from quarrying operations. It is productive land. Quarrying is non-productive, it is destructive, straight out destructive. While commissioners are approving individual quarry operations as being less than minor effect, the true fact is they are far more damaging than less than minor when combined together. We have instances in Town Road where between Fulton Hogan's and Ablett's, they cannot distinguish where the dust is coming from. They are too close together. They need shifting apart so that the blame can be put in place. These facts have been tested in the Environment Court and upheld. GHRA are currently undertaking dust monitoring, and this will remain ongoing into the foreseeable future. This time, they're in negotiations with suppliers in Australia, USA and China. These monitors must be robust enough to stand up in court proceedings, while remaining mobile so they can be located to various sites. Somewhat bewildering to see three authorities, the City Council, ECAN and the CDHB, burying their heads in crystalline silica sand and leave the more prominent parts exposed to the air over PM10, PM2.5 dust. The same attitude was taken with log fires, we'd still have a serious smog issue. Difference here is that crystalline silica dust comes not only from crushed aggregate, but also from the sand the aggregate lies in. Crystalline silica is also harder to see, so is often ignored. Crystalline silica dust has also been recorded as travelling 8 to 10 kilometres. Crystalline silica also does not cause asthma, but silicosis and other respiratory illnesses. So in fact is far worse and more dangerous than any soot. The quarry industry has long been suspected by many for its perceived lack of accountability or else they would have stepped up with the true facts instead of the lines they tend to distribute to justify themselves. If what they say is true, there would be no setbacks in Australia, India or anywhere else in the world. New Zealand is way behind the times on this matter, and a review of the RMA Act is well overdue. Queensland requires a 2-kilometre setback if over 1,000 people live in a village, while in India, which is heavily populated, requires 1 kilometre setback. Does this mean we now live in a fourth world situation? It's our opinion these quarry operators have very deep pockets and very short arms when it comes to residents' health and safety, but the opposite when trying to buy within the city's boundary. We have quarries with earthquake salvage in them, often buried when it was meant to have been sorted and relocated to safe disposal sites. In short, the public in the western area of the city have been manipulated for long enough. We've had constant complaints about levels of dust in our area. The dust issue has really come to the fore since the earthquakes and the Roberts Road quarry opening. When asked if complaints have been lodged with council, the reply is, you're just wasting your breath. Now, I don't mean this particular council as such. ECAN is every bit as bad, don't worry. No one really listens to the complaints about quarries or past quarries, such as those behind Boston Ave. Perhaps this dialogue needs further airing on fair go sometime in the future. The Greater Hornby Residents Association believes no further quarrying operation should be approved between Islington, Hi, Templeton and Yaldhurst. There is a block of land in there that is suitable for industrial development or residential development, not quarrying. In the meantime, the Greater Hornby Residents Association requests a moratorium on all quarry consents and approvals from today forward under the current district plan, so public health can be considered along with residents' concerns regarding the ongoing quarrying operations that have been taking place against their wishes. This should be a full, open, as well as a transparent investigation moving forward. Any opposition from within the quarrying faction should be seen as merely trying to protect their patch, so to speak, while still ignoring residents' concerns and health. Understanding orders, I believe this request is not out of order, seeing that there is an aggregate supply equivalent to some 23 years without a decision on the Royden Quarry application, which is currently before the Employment Court. So delay is not a factor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Look, I think you've heard what I said to the previous submitter, that it's an inappropriate phrase, but we're between a rock and a hard place. You know, when you're talking about quarrying, and you have talked about the Resource Management Act. The government has announced that there are significant changes coming. But I don't want people to have an unrealistic expectation of what that might open up by way of public involvement in decisions around development. So I'm trying to be as open about this as I possibly can. I do note that the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land has not yet been brought into effect. It is still a draft. They are still working on the detail of it. We submitted on it in 2019. So it is, it's obviously been a process that hasn't led to something that I personally was very much looking forward to, which was to find some protection from the law from the development, inappropriate development or use of highly productive land. But so you've raised serious issues. I'm actually thinking I'm coming to visit the Greater Hornby residents in the very near future. So I'm now well prepared with a set of questions that I'm obviously going to be asked to answer on that day. So, but thank you very much. I hope you've taken some comfort from the fact that the Chief Executive will follow up with ECAN.
No, that is good.
Thank you.
Possible because based on the Ross and also Davina, the kind of the deputation, Davina emphasized still every council should have a responsibility to review also section 23 of the Health
look,
Act.
Jimmy,
And
Jimmy,
it's a
I'm just
review
going to
district
hold
plan.
it. Look, I know how
possible.
passionate you are. You are the best representative for a council area that you could possibly imagine. But I just don't want. I don't care who else I offend around the table. But Jimmy wants to make the point. You've made the point, Jimmy, and that. I'm going to be meeting with the Greater Hornby Residents Association. I doubt that they will mind if you come with me, and we'll follow it up with them. But I think people do need to clearly understand the limitations in our resource management system.
We do. We do.
And I know that you understand that we have been trying within the parameters of the framework that we have to work to as well.
Yeah.
But we'll continue to work together as much as we possibly can. So,
If I may say, we have, as you know, we have problems with dust.
yeah,
It is not only limited to ECAN and the City Council, it is prosecutable under the Crimes Act.
yeah.
And
well,
that may come
let's
eventually.
let's all take
We
that
hope
off.
not.
Let's all take that offline because we do want to get the outcome.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Ross, for making yourself available this morning, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you.
And at the